I went down this very scientific psychology, neuroscience path, and I met my co-founder, Dr. Michael Keane, and he had been in this space for 20 years. So, to give you a quick summary of what we do, and then I can give you more examples from athletes and C-suites and different things.
Yeah.
We use something called EEG to measure brain function. So EEG is super interesting. It's actually 101 years old, the technology. So people assume anything with the brain is really novel. But this technology was invented by a guy called Hans Berger in 1924. And I think you'll love this story. So he was trying to prove that twins could communicate through telepathy. So
What's
he had this
that?
belief. Yeah, right. So,
What?
and to be clear, he was probably on the extreme fringes of psychiatry at the time. So he was seen as a bit of a quack.
Yeah.
And he would get two twins, obviously, and he would put them in his lab and he would put this cage around them that could measure electricity. And what he was trying to see is, if he could get one to think of a number and another to think of the same number, would the electricity somehow show that it's communicating? And essentially, like many discoveries, there was a mistake or an accident, and the cage just fell on one of the twins, not in a bad way, just touched their skin. And as soon as the sensor, which was looking to pick up electricity, touched the skin, he started to see a reading. And because obviously our brain is all electricity, when you think of all the different brain waves, theta, alpha, beta, they're different electrical waves that have different characteristics. So he, by fluke, he realized, oh, there's something here. If I put the electrodes and the sensors on the skin, I can measure something. And no one believed him. For years and years and years, no one believed him. He had to break into the psychiatry societies with his machine, and you used to have to put people's feet in water to ground them. And he'd roll them in and he'd drop them and he'd say, look, and he'd put the sensors on and the monitor, like I suppose an very old school sensor would start to move. And people would just assume this guy he was losing his marbles. It's quite a sad story, actually. In the end, he committed suicide as he got into it later in his life because he just wasn't believed.
They
And
got
then, as is
those
often
days ahead of their time, right?
massively so. I mean, he had a lot of other. He's an interesting guy. If people want to read about him, Hans Berger, he
I'm
kind of
gonna.
had some flings with the Nazis as well, which it's hard to know if that was forced upon him or not. So, he's got a fairly checkered past.
Mhm.
But certainly, this aspect, which was before the rise of fascism in Germany, was very much him as an experimenter. And he created what has now become this whole field of neuroscience and this whole field of brain measurement. And I suppose its most common use now is in sleep. So if you ever have a friend that's really struggling with sleep and they have to go into a sleep lab, they'll put what looks like a big swimming cap on their head and they have sensors all over it. They usually have 19 sensors or 36 sensors, sorry, 18 or 36, generally speaking. And those sensors are measuring the brainwaves and they're measuring sleep. So sleep, because it's so consistent in terms of the different waves